Hello fellow cyborgs, and welcome to another Hindsight is 2020 video, where I tell you about the books that I have recently reread. I recently finished my reread of the Imperial Radch Trilogy by Ann Leckie. This starts with Ancillary Justice, continues to Ancillary Sword, and then finally gets to Ancillary Mercy. I'm going to go through my top 10 reasons why I love the Imperial Radch Trilogy, from 10 counting up to 1, though these things have been numbered pretty arbitrarily. Number 10. A live fish is eaten and somehow manages to still be alive when it's thrown up later. I can't really talk about this in too much detail without giving plot things away, but this was just a wonderful cherry on top of a nice, satisfying ending. Number 9, I love that the action scenes are not stressful. The Imperial Radch Trilogy deals with revenge and warfare and genocide, and it still ends up being a pretty chill experience. One of the reasons is Breq is our main point of view character, who's an AI. That means she's very rational and she does not react very emotionally, so any of the fear or panic that might be present in an action scene is not as present from her. My other thought is that some of these action scenes take place in space and really take the idea of physics of space and space warfare into account, which means that sometimes warfare has a lot more to do with mathematics and planning than just firefights in space. Number 8. The mystery elements of the plots are compelling and satisfying. This is especially true in the second book, Ancillary Sword. This book is my favorite of the trilogy, and I think one of the reasons why is that mystery element. What is actually going on? Who is trying to kill whom? For what reason? I just really find that book especially satisfying. Number 7. There are many descriptions of teaware. If you love imagining beautiful tea sets yourself, then I think this will be an extra bonus in these books. Drinking tea is an integral part of the Radch culture, and therefore the tea sets that they use are similarly important. They denote prestige and status. And hearing about these beautiful objects, or reading about these beautiful objects, is just very delightful. 6. Some of the overall themes or discussions in these books include psychology, grief, and personhood, and those are definitely 3 of my bookish buzzwords. 5. The setups in book 1 pay off in book number 3. You kind of always hope this will be the case for trilogies, but it doesn't necessarily happen. I'm specifically thinking about one object that you're introduced in book 1 and how it becomes an integral part of the climax in book number 3. And when I thought about that, I just was very, very satisfied. So I just realized this is actually a list of 12, so I'm not going to bother counting anymore. And we're just going to continue on from wherever we left off. Another thing I loved, another little tidbit, is that an alien becomes addicted to drinking fish sauce. And it's just kind of hysterical. I love how the world building, while not being idyllic, is not grim or gritty. There are a lot of really horrifying things that happen in here, but somehow I as a reader remain removed from that horror, of which I appreciate. This kind of harkens back to the fact that the action scenes aren't stressful. These books just aren't stressful, even though they deal with stressful things. As someone who fights with her anxiety on certain days, it's really nice to have a thrilling trilogy that I know is not going to actually upset me. These books are actually really comforting. I also enjoy the fact that in this trilogy, redemption is possible. We have a lot of characters who've gone through traumatic events or are broken in one way or another. The books never forget about them and leave them just in their broken state. Not to say that the ending is all happy, happy, wonderful times, everybody's fine now, but to me, it felt like the books really cared about every single character. I really enjoyed hearing about the religion in the Radch. It's a polytheistic system and has a morning ritual of throwing a cast to kind of get an idea of what the world is going to bring that day. It's not a main focus in the books by any means, but as you continue through the trilogy, you get more little bits and pieces, and I just found it really lovely. My number 2 favorite thing, we're getting to the top 2, though really this is probably as important as the number 1 thing I love about the trilogy, is that tea drinking happens often in these books, and it's always wonderful to read about. As someone who drinks tea a lot when I'm reading, the fact that these characters are also drinking tea, often out of beautiful teaware sets, just makes it even more immersive for me. Drinking tea is also a really calming and pleasurable and leisure activity in my mind, and so seeing these characters take breathers and having that built into their daily culture and their daily requirements just meant that the chill factor of this trilogy was heightened to by 5 levels. I had a lot of fun imagining what kinds of tea they might be drinking and what their teaware might look like, and it just added to the cozy, comforting feeling of this trilogy. And then tying for number 1 as my favorite thing about this trilogy is definitely the character of Breq. I love her. She's probably the reason why I love love AIs so much. She has a tragic backstory. She wants to seek revenge. She has the physical capabilities of doing so. She's logical and rational, and she thinks through things, but she also definitely has a tender side and a gentle side and a side that's really concerned about caring for others, and a side really that can't help but care for others. She forms a lot of really lovely relationships, not only as a leader gaining respect, but also just as a friend and equal. She also shows her vulnerable side quite often, both physically and mentally and emotionally. As much as Breq is probably a bit overpowered, I think that she's a well-balanced character, and I just love her perspective and hearing about her and being in her head. Definitely, if I did not love Breq, if you don't love Breq, I don't know how you could love this trilogy, but I also don't know how you couldn't love Breq. So those are the top 10, 12 reasons why I love the Imperial Radch Trilogy. This is definitely my favorite trilogy. I would have to reread a couple other trilogies I've completed to confirm this, but this is the trilogy I've reread the most, and one that has not slipped down in my estimation 1 star the many times that I've read it. All 5 books deserve and have received 5 stars from me, and I love them all dearly and kind of wish that I would start rereading the trilogy again right now. Man, I want some tea. Thank you for watching, and until next time, continue to be lovely.